did some rearranging, clearing this space out, and I don't think it's quite as unlevel as I thought, although I mean it is sloped down a little bit, so I may not need to necessarily precision grade this before I do some earthworks. But I do think I've come up with a slightly different plan. For one thing, even though I've got this area where this box is kind of laid out, is facing, best I can tell, due south, which would be best for solar panels. So I had been thinking about, and I may still do it. So this little rectangle here may need to go ahead and be kind of brought up a little bit to make a pad that I can build a structure on, which will be the chicken coop. Have it facing due south with solar panels facing due south. That way I can get more power. I mean, those trees in the wintertime are always going to be a problem, but if I can get the panels up a little bit higher, at least the structure, the sun won't be low enough in the winter to obstruct them. It'll just be that. But right now my power needs are so low that if I could get a couple thousand watts of solar on a structure right here, that I'd be doing pretty good. And then I mean I could still use the generator, just wouldn't need to do it that often. Plus I've still got the ones down there. So I mean that could possibly get me 2,000 to 3,000 watts at least when the sun is available. But what I had been thinking about doing was leveling this, then using my walk-behind tractor and the rotary plow to do some permanent raised beds. And I'm still planning on doing that. I still think that's going to be my best way, just kind of more or less on contour, follow the curve here, get 2 or 3 raised beds there. But I was just going to do that. I mean, I was just going to plow them up, create the raised beds, go get a bunch of wood chips to put in the pathways, and go from there. Then I got into the biochar class and thought, well, if I'm going to do that, then as I'm building those raised beds, go ahead and incorporate some biochar in there for the actual bed space, not the entire space, to help that growing. And I was going to create that biochar from the materials on hand, which I am going to do. But I don't know that I'm going to be able to do the quantity that I really would like to, no more than I'm down here. And I've got, you know, a couple of piles of small brush, but I've got all that firewood from where I cleared up at the front that's about 2 or 3 years old. And I was thinking I can burn that. Still going to do that. However, there may be an additional, I don't have to use it all for one thing. I can use some of that wood up there for 2 or 3 different things. And it's about 3 years old, so it's probably starting to get a little punky. It's definitely old enough that any of the chemicals in it, you know, that inhibit growth should be gone. So basically I find myself with a quote waste product of wood that I need to get rid of, but I've also need to create some raised beds here. So what if I take my rotary plow, and where the first bed is going to be, I need enough room for a walkway, so I need to be able to walk on the outside of the bed. But where the first bed's going to be, instead of piling the dirt onto the bed, take the dirt or the soil out of that bed, creating the depression, then go get that wood, fill that depression with that wood. On top of the wood, put biochar. Now, to do the first bed, the quantity that I'll need, I'm not going to be able to make. So I may just go ahead and go get maybe a pallet, half a pallet to a pallet of that Royal Oak chunk hardwood charcoal. In talking with Kelpie Wilson, her impression of using that kind of wood, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not toxic. It's just made to be fuel wood, which means it's made at a lower temperature, which means less of the carbon is fully carbonized and recalcitrant in the way that it would last probably for hundreds and hundreds of years. So there's enough of the compounds that have not been converted yet or burned off that it will break down faster. It will be food for soil life to break down. Well, actually, in this particular case, that might be perfect. That might be absolutely perfect, because I can put that on top. I don't expect it to last hundreds of years, not like I'm going to be here anyway. But it puts a good amount of char down. I mean, I do have some here, but I don't want to put that in my garden beds. It may have some plastics and nails and stuff. On top of that char, it's getting close to time for me to clean out my 2 chicken coops over at my parents'. So rather than piling that up and composting it somewhere, I just fill the pickup with that, bring it over, put that chicken litter and bedding on top of the char and on top of the wood. Then put the soil back on top. So I'm basically kind of trench composting and hugel bed with biochar all at the same time. And by the time I do that, that bed is going to be above. It's going to be higher than the surrounding. I can keep that level. Use my transit, make sure that's fairly level. So that would be, you know, the bottom swale, you might say. Depending on how fast that gets done, all that, then I could do the second and the third one the same way. Of course, all during all that time, as I have the ability and the time, I could be making my own biochar and learning from that. But that may be my first, and I need to get on this, because I mean, we still got some freezing weather coming in. It's the beginning of February, but it's going to be spring before long. And even if I don't plant crops, you know, regular garden crops, I need to plant something. I need to have the beds made, and I need to get some living roots in the ground. Since this is not fenced, I don't need to put anything too valuable that I'm going to stress over if it gets eaten, because there's plenty of wildlife here. There's plenty of deer, and there's a good chance that whatever I plant is probably going to get eaten, at least to some degree. I do still need to get in here and do a little bit of thinning. Definitely any of the winged elm I need to go ahead and get out, but I think there's some cherry and pawpaw or something of that nature in here. I don't want to clear this completely, because I want trees and living roots to help control the erosion, but these garden beds would also help control that erosion, almost eliminate it. So basically, the next thing I need to do, I guess, I need to move this. I need to clean this out and move it, and I need to get my Grillo down here with the rotary plow and start making me some beds. So dig the bed out, put the wood in it, then go get some charcoal, and I probably won't even bother trying to crush it. I'm supposed to pick up Saturday, go down to Tuckerman, pick up a couple of corn grinders, antique corn grinders that I'm hoping I can get into good working order, find a way to power it, and that may be my charcoal crushers. But even without, for what I'm doing, I can't necessarily wait on that. So I need to dig my first bed, fill it with wood, cover it with charcoal, then clean out the coops, put all that on top, and then put the soil on top of that, and then get some wood chips for the pathways. So that's the immediate plan. So I've got this structure. This is a metal carport that I had in my backyard over in Marion, and it was my chicken coop. So that was actually the run, and then I built that red little coop right there that fit kind of on the end of it, And then this thing had, you know, the metal roof, and then was completely enclosed in welded wire and chicken wire to keep them in, and for the most part keep predators out. I had it on a foundation of railroad ties, and they were pretty much sunk into the ground. I know that's not the greatest thing. They were old ones, but you know, I knew they would last as long as I needed them to. I was able to secure this down to the railroad ties, so between their weight and the fact that the ties were in the ground and it was a fairly sheltered area, it wasn't going in anywhere. One of the best things I ever did. Keeping the run dry just made everything easy, made the birds a lot healthier. So what I could do, mark that out, this area out, level this area, figure out how to secure it to the ground. I don't think I want to use railroad ties here. I'm not sure if I want to use pour concrete or not, because then that's a concrete foundation. I could do blocks. I could do solid concrete blocks. They're loose stacked. That way they're not, it's not a poured concrete foundation. And then what I've done is, before, take the mobile home anchors, sink them at the four corners, secure with cables, so that that's the anchoring system to keep it down, while the concrete blocks would be keeping the metal, you know, providing the level base, keeping the metal off the soil, and have it about a foot higher than, actually that would be easier to level, because all I'd have to do is really level right underneath the pipes. And then, you know, all four sides, and have it raised up a little bit, because I could fill it, I'll be filling it with wood chips as deep bedding, and they will level it. So that would take care of that. Now, it would be, in a perfect world, I need to see what that angle would be here. In a perfect world, that would need to be about 30 degrees. And then of course this side's going down. But what I could potentially do is see what that degree is, bring some more, just bring some 2x4s or something up high enough on either side, just attach like a 2x4 here, 2x4 here, sandwich it, that metal up high enough to have this half of the seal of the roof at 30 degrees, even if this one's not. So let's say this is at, if 90 degrees is vertical, you know, so if this is 0, 30, let's say this one's only about 20, which would be great for the summer and stuff. But I could have a row that's actually at 30, or really, if this was less than 30, I could have that a little bit more. I could have it almost at 45. Whatever angle would get me the best sun as the sun goes down in the winter. Have this top row optimized for winter, this one just at whatever the angle is, and then potentially, if I wanted to, I could put another row almost as an awning. Not real sure, but I definitely want to do it in such a way that I can put gutters on this side and catch rainwater. So it might be a 2-pitch roof with a gutter. See what my production is there, and then see if I need to put another row, maybe just 100 waters, a little narrow 100 waters as well. We can see what that does. But that would get me the chicken coop, a secure chicken coop, and a little bit more solar right here close without having to continue running wires across the easement. As far as the actual wires, unless I'm going to be driving, once I get this running, I could go overhead. I wouldn't necessarily have to go underneath. I mean, I could even just extend a pole up here. It could be an antenna pole. I could put an extra section or two of tower up high enough so that I could do the PV wire overhead, so I could still drive underneath it, not have to worry about ripping anything up under the soil. And I need to measure that length. I'm going to say it's around 20. See how many panels I could get horizontally or vertical on that. So I could either just use the frame I've got and add to it. I could use it as it is, just put it back together the way I had it, use it and modify it. Or if the local building, places that make these custom order, if they've got this exact same size pipe, possibly even use these verticals, but just have new taller verticals on this side and trusses to give me a single slope. See what that might cost. But there's a thought. I'll probably do some figuring, some drawing, leave this here for a few days, kind of see, because I mean, I do have to be able to drive up, and get in and around and stuff like that. But the farther I could get it that way, the better. But I need to be able to get all the way around it to keep the trees and stuff out of it. But that would give me the start of some gardening area here. Starting the process of my first actual garden beds on this property. Now, I'm not necessarily going to try to do significant production, so I don't have real high hopes for this year, mainly because if I was to actually start depending on it and getting my hopes up, I don't have any fences, and there's lots of deer and rabbits and other things here. So the technique that I'm using might not necessarily be incredibly productive anyway the first year. It's a long-term thing, but also, again, I just don't want to get my hopes up too much and then get them eaten at the last second. But so what I've done here is kind of trenched out with the Grillo walk-behind tractor and a rotary plow, kind of a ditch. And right here, the only reason it's not more rounded going around is I've actually got a couple of elderberry cuttings that I had put in the soil, and I want them to get fully rooted, and they may not stay there. I may take cuttings off of them to propagate somewhere else, but for right now I don't want to disturb them. They're just cuttings from down on one of the ditches nearby, but they've already been there almost a year, so I want to give them a chance. But what I've done is I've got a bunch of firewood that I had cut, and I don't have a fireplace. I've got a fire pit, but I don't have a wood stove, and so they've been sitting outside. And this particular part, a bunch of it had fallen over, and they've been on the ground and under leaves and stuff, so just getting really punky. So they probably, and you can see lots of mycelium mushrooms and stuff is starting to grow on them, so they really probably wouldn't be good to burn anyway. But at being 2 or 3 years old like that, they're great for hugelkultur. So I've gone ahead and filled them in. I may get a little bit more. Then I'm going to put charcoal on top of that. Now, not briquettes that have lighter fluid and stuff, but actual chunk charcoal.